Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Rentz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, a new report from Las Vegas Review-Journal, Vincent Bonsignore, indicates that the Raiders head to the NFL Scouting Combine with all eyes on the quarterback position. This should not surprise literally anybody that tunes into this show. This might surprise you. Quarterback's an important position. And until the Raiders figure out what their QB is going to be, this is where Telesco and Antonio Pierce have to put all of their eyes on this, right? So for the Combine, it does technically start today, the 26th, and we're going to be sending out our team here at Chat Sports tomorrow. But when the real drills start getting underway, February 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be live Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and I'll keep you guys up to date on Saturday, Sunday as well, based on some of the news and notes that we get from out at the Combine. But if you're wondering, Mitch, all right, what positions end up practicing or doing their drills on certain days? On Thursday, the 29th, defensive linemen and linebackers. DBs and tight ends are on the first, quarterback, wide receiver, running back on the second, and then on the third is going to be the offensive lineman. However, I wanted to show you what Vincent Bonsignore had to say about the Raiders and how their concentration is on QBs, and which, again, shouldn't surprise anybody, but if you know that going into it, their number one focus is on a QB, that just indicates again, and there's more smoke around, the Raiders potentially drafting a quarterback in 2024. So here's the report. Their ability to mesh and work together will go a long way towards determining how the Raiders will pull off a critical offseason. That includes the first draft, in which they hold 9 picks over 7 rounds and likely their first crack at securing the franchise quarterback who has eluded the Raiders for decades. The Raiders will be hyper-focused on the quarterbacks at the Combine. Eventually, they will marry their intel from the Combine with their film work, upcoming pro day workouts, and private visits to make one of the more significant decisions in years. For those that do not know, we are going to be sitting down with Tom Telesco, and we're going to be interviewing him. He's going to be interviewing at the NFL Combine at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you want to see some of the news and notes that we get from Telesco, click that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. We're going to be putting out this video tomorrow, somewhere around, I would say, 1 p.m. Eastern Time once we get all of our intel from Tom Telesco. So if you want some notes from the Raiders GM, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep it moving here on this report from Vinny B. We got Williams, Maye, Daniels, or McCarthy are capable of being the difference-making quarterbacks the Raiders need. How high do they have to move up in the draft to secure one of them? Are they willing to pay the price to do so? So essentially what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through and I'm going to give you my 2 cents on all of the quotes here from Bonsignore. To me, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, and Drake Maye, these are the quarterbacks that are worth trading up for. If Tom Telesco, Antonio Pierce said, hey, Mitch, would you be willing to send in $100, $1,000 to ante up and get one of these guys? I would say yes. I would be willing to put my own money towards one of these franchise quarterbacks because it's what I believe that the Raiders end up needing. I do think in order to 100% secure one of them, you will have to move up to 3, and I do believe that that's probably going to have to happen before NFL free agency. Like, I know that the Raiders want Jayden Daniels, and I believe that the Raiders would be moving up, would be willing to move up into the top 3 for the LSU quarterback. Hell, I think they'd be willing to move up to number 1 for the LSU quarterback. But the reason why I am a believer that the Raiders need to make a decision now is because I want the Raiders to make that trade right now. That way you can plan free agency around the idea of you having that franchise quarterback, and then you can plan the draft of getting them. What I don't want to happen is the Raiders don't have a plan. You miss out on free agency on a quarterback, then you miss in the draft on a quarterback. That would make me very, very nervous. We're going to keep rocking here on this report from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Are Michael Penix and Bo Nix worthy of being picked 13th overall? Can the Raiders wait until they pick at number 44 in the second round to secure either one of them? Or do they need to trade back into the end of the first round or higher up in the second to select them? I will say this over and over and over again. I do this show for the Raiders, and there's going to be some people that have other opinions, and that's totally fine. That's what makes the world go round, right? To me, the Las Vegas Raiders, where they are currently at, you cannot afford to take J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. in round 1. If I'm the Raiders, I need to be able to invest those picks, those critical picks, either at a defensive tackle spot, either at the offensive line, or I will say best player available. There is a 0% chance that in the first round, for the Raiders in their current situation, McCarthy, Nix, Penix will ever be the best player available on the board. And for that, I'm not going to take any of them because I don't think any of them are going to be franchise quarterbacks. I will admit, I don't think that 3 of them are going to be there at pick 44. And if you're like, well, we got to get one of them, well, then I actually think that the most likely scenario is not taking one of them at pick 13. And if you're like, Mitch, we got to get one of those quarterbacks, you're probably then going to have to use that second-round pick and maybe another pick down the line to trade back up into the back end of round 1, which I've already made a video around. So how about this? Let's play a little bit of a game because this is what this show here is all about. Who's the best quarterback out of the 4 that you see on screen? Let's say the Raiders miss on all the QBs in free agency because they waited. Let's say because they waited, then they also missed on the top 3 picks of the top 3 quarterbacks in this year's draft. And if you had to choose who's going to be the Raiders' starting QB in 2024 out of the 4 names that you see up on screen, you're about to get hit with a YouTube bad break. Scroll on down and give me your answer. Out of all of those quarterbacks, the one that I would be the most confident in is Michael Penix Jr. However, with that being said, it scares the absolute hell out of me because I still need to see what his medicals look like. I'm not ever going to be a believer in Bo Nix. Spoiler alert. I'm not ever going to be a believer in J.J. McCarthy. Spoiler alert. And if I got to draft any one of those quarterbacks at pick 13, I would actually rather roll with Aidan O'Connell then, and then you end up drafting a guy like Spencer Rattler in round 4 and let those 2 compete. Bottom line, none of those quarterbacks deserve to be drafted in round 1 by the Las Vegas Raiders. Coming up here is going to be the final quote to the report from Vincent Bonsignore, and this is more of the late round quarterback discussion, which might be a case for every single NFL team, especially if those QBs do go as the top 3 picks. I'll tell you what that quote is, and I'll give you my reaction to it in just a second, but today's show is sponsored by Game Time. And for anybody that's watching the show, buying tickets to your favorite events, it shouldn't be stressful. I already get stressed out enough about parking. I don't want to have to worry about just getting to the game. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code RaidersChat for $20 off your first purchase. You can kind of see it up on screen right now. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code RaidersChat for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. If for whatever reason you can't see it on screen, the link is also going to be available to you all down in the comments and in the description of today's show. Game Time, I love it because it is literally the perfect app for me. I think it's the perfect app for people that are maybe a little bit busy and don't want to commit to things long in the future. And because they have those last-minute ticket deals, they would rather you get the ticket than just having an empty seat because at the end of the day, they know you're going to be spending money on food, drinks, and other things. So one more time here, download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Use code RaidersChat for $20 off. Let's go to the final quote here from Vinny B. Can someone from the next tier of quarterback prospects make a similar impact? Among that group are South Carolina's Spencer Rattler, Tulane's Michael Pratt, Florida State's Jordan Travis, South Alabama's Carter Bradley, and Tennessee's Joe Milton. Out of the quarterbacks that were mentioned there, to me, the only one that is intriguing to me, which maybe I shouldn't say the only one. If I'm going to compare Pratt and Spencer Rattler, like to me the quarterback, and this is the thing that I feel like everybody's going to be looking for this year, is who can be the next Brock Purdy, right? Who can be the next Brock Purdy? To me, the name that I think is the most like Brock Purdy is actually Michael Pratt, quarterback from Tulane, who I do see as being a very intelligent quarterback and being able to read all the field. He just doesn't have as much athletic ability as what I want in a QB, but hey, it can be learned. Jordan Travis is too much of a risk with his injuries for minimal NFL talent. Like when people ask me, what do I think about Jordan Travis? I'll throw out the name Jacoby Brissett. Like to me, that's his ceiling. And then Joe Milton, he's going to have a good combine. I'm telling y'all right now, Joe Milton is going to have himself a combine, and people are going to be like, oh, this guy, the stock's going to go up. He can't play quarterback, though. Like, he's not a good QB. He was horrendous all season. He was horrendous at the Senior Bowl. Don't fall into the trap of Milton's a great athlete, but he's a terrible quarterback. If I'm Milton, I try to take my career path like a Taysom Hill career path, which, hey, it still can be a very good job making a lot of money. Coming up next here, the latest NFL draft reports and why I do want some people that just have a little bit of hope out there in terms of the Raiders getting one of those top QBs, because where there is smoke, I do think that there is fire, and I know that not every time there is smoke, there's going to be a fire. But to me, when you see new reports continually pop up, it does give me hope. It does give me just like, so you're saying there's a chance that the Raiders can get up into that top three and get one of their quarterbacks. So today, Peter King, he retired. And for those that don't know, Peter King's been in the industry for a long time. Been a reporter, I want to say, for like 44 years. And in his final column today, he predicted that the Bears keep Justin Fields at quarterback and trade the number 1 pick. One of the things that I've been saying for a long time on the show is it wouldn't surprise me if the Bears traded that number 1 pick. I don't know if they still are going to keep Justin Fields at QB, but if a guy like Peter King is like putting his money where his mouth is, and that's the prediction that he's going, there's obviously some chatter around it. Then, I said about 2 weeks ago, there were reports from Boston. New reports from Boston in the last 24 hours said that New England could trade the number 3 pick. So there you go. You got even more people saying they could trade the number 3 pick. And then trading to the top 3 might be the most expensive it's ever been, which is going to scare some people away. But again, if it means that you're getting yourself your franchise quarterback, I'm going to do it. I am all in on the idea of I don't care what it costs. What does it cost? Cool, I'm going to do it. Let's go get our guy. So here's what the trade-up cost projection would be based off of what Vinny B put out in his report. And this is solely based on what the 49ers gave up in 2021 when they moved up from 12 to 3. I get it. They took Trey Lance, and that was a disaster. I'll also say I was never a big fan of Trey Lance coming out of college. But if this is what it cost, right? The Raiders, they get the number 3 overall pick from New England. The Patriots get number 13 overall. They get a first-round pick and a third-round pick in 2025, and then a first-round pick in 2026. I know when I say 3 first-round picks, it scares the hell out of people. But if you're a guy like Antonio Pierce, if you're a guy like Tom Telesco, I would rather trade 3 first-round picks because it gives me the ability to have all of my picks in year 1. Like if you're AP, I look at that 2026 and I almost look at that as like, I don't even give a shit about it because if I don't do well my first 2 years, I might not even be around in 2026. Like if I'm Antonio Pierce, if I'm the Raiders, I would rather do this trade instead of giving up a second-round pick this year and a third-round pick to move up to go to number 1. Sure, losing your first-round pick in those years, it stinks. But you got to think about it from their standpoint of if we don't do a good job in year 1 and year 2, I don't know if we're even around in year 3. So would I do this trade? Abso-freaking-lutely. I want the Raiders to get themselves a franchise quarterback. My question to you is, would you make this trade for the Raiders? And I just want to simply know yes or no. If you want to put down in the comments, trade, yes or no. That way it indicates to me whether or not I know exactly what you're talking about. But to me, the Raiders cannot, and I mean continually not be in this purgatory of quarterbacks where you got to go get your guy. And when you're in a division with Patrick Mahomes, when you're in the AFC that is just loaded with QB talent, Aiden O'Connell is a great human being. And I mean, he's a great, great human being, right? The only way that you're winning the Super Bowl with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback is, I'm not shitting you, if you stack every single other position on your roster to give you a chance. I want the Raiders to go have a quarterback that's that difference maker where you put Jayden Daniels, you put whoever out there on the field, they're going to be able to make that difference. If you put Patrick Mahomes on any single NFL team, if you put Patrick Mahomes on the Carolina Panthers, that's a playoff team. Honestly, they have a chance to win the Super Bowl. I need that much of a difference maker. And is it risky? Of course it is. But the Raiders have also been an absolute disaster drafting in round 1. So let's go get our guy. Is it risky? Yeah, but I trust Antonio Pierce to go get him. And for that reason, I'm trading up into the top 3. So coming up here, Raiders 2024 NFL Draft Quarterback Ranking Projections. This is not my rankings. This is my projection based on what I think Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco's big board looks like at the QB position. Because if they don't have one, shame on them. Because before you go to the NFL Combine, if I was those guys, I'd say sit down with me and let's figure out what your top 10 quarterbacks look like. Your top 8 quarterbacks look like. I am not saying that this is their rankings. I'm simply basing it off of what I have heard, reports, my knowledge of the Raiders, and everything going on with this team. This, to me, is what I believe Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco's quarterback rankings look like for 2024. I know that AP's all in on Jayden Daniels. To me, you can't convince me that anybody else is the number 1 quarterback on AP's board. Then at number 2, I would say is Caleb Williams. Number 3 would be Drake Maye. I've been told by a source that Telesco likes Bo Nix a lot, and he doesn't like J.J. McCarthy. So for that reason, that's why I have Bo here at 4. I could also see teams dropping Penix down because of the medical. We'll see there. Spencer Rattler and Michael Pratt, then, to me, are just the next 2 best quarterbacks in this group. But there's a lot of major tier breaks. But I'm telling you, if the Raiders trade up to 3 and you can guarantee either Daniels, Caleb, or Drake Maye, it's going to totally change this franchise for a very, very long time. And then the guy that everyone forgets is Mark Davis. There was a report, you got to go all the way back to January 24th, I believe was the day that he said it. But he was basically like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get a quarterback. So with that mindset, with Telesco's history of drafting QBs at number 1, with Antonio Pierce's connection with Jayden Daniels, this team is serious about trading up for a QB, and the rumors are already starting entering the NFL scouting combine.